Hello, and welcome back to Jacob's Guest Lounge, the history behind the mouse. Within every memory, there is magic. Today's episode, we're celebrating not one, but two unusual holidays. International Day of Laughter and Reach as High as You Can Day. I've included the link from the internet that includes all of the day holidays, and it will be in the episode description, so please take a moment to research it and get a little joy out of finding the unusual days that we all celebrate. At first, they might seem completely unrelated. One's about laughter, the other about dreaming big, but in Disney's world, these ideas are deeply connected. Because Disney doesn't just make us laugh, it teaches us to believe. From the very beginning, Disney understood something simple but powerful. Laughter brings people together. Think back to the early days of animation, for example. Black and white, no dialogue, just movement and music. And right at the center of it all was Mickey Mouse. In cartoons like Steamboat Willie, Mickey didn't need long speeches or complicated jokes. His humor was physical, expressive, almost universal. Anyone and everywhere could understand it. That was the whole point after all. Laughter became Disney's first language. What was the first Disney movie you remember watching that made you laugh? As Disney storytelling evolved, so did its humor. With Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disney introduced personality-driven comedy by having a distinct identity, such as grumpy, dopey, sneezy, bashful, and happy being several names to include with common expression. And each one made us laugh in a different way. And as I'm talking about laughter and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it makes me wonder, why didn't they include another dwarf named Laffy? I mean, think about it. Most of the characters in the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the dwarves themselves, they all had names of expression, whether it was happy or bashful. Why not just include Laffy? Make it a little bit more of a driving it home kind of a deal. It wasn't just jokes anymore. It was the characters who had heart that ended up becoming a Disney signature. Is there a Disney character that made you laugh the most? Whether it be from your earliest memories or something that sticks with you today. Fast forward a few decades and Disney comedy became even more dynamic. Characters like Genie being fast-paced, improvisational humor, constantly shifting and surprising us all. Then there's Olaf, whose innocence and optimism create gentle, heartfelt, sometimes unexpectedly deep laughter. And of course, save the best for last, we cannot forget Up. Picture this. You're in a floating house, completely silent, the world below quiet. And then you hear a knock. At first, you might think it's a woodpecker or something small, but knocking comes again, louder and more consistent. That's when the unexpected visitor appears right in midair. The way Russell pleads, completely earnest, and Carl responds with his gruff and unsympathetic attitude. It's comedy gold. And the more I watch it, the more I always keep saying to myself, I'll never tire of that moment. And then you have Doug. He may have stolen the show, turning tense moments into pure humor. For every Disney fan that loves to watch Pixar films or just has a young at heart personality. That's why International Day of Laughter is so important. It reminds us that joy, humor, and those unexpected moments are what make life memorable, if not unforgettable. Disney teaches us that there isn't just one kind of humor. There are many, and they evolve with time just like we do. Disney laughter isn't just something you watch, it's something that you experience. If you've ever been on the Jungle Cruise, you know exactly what I mean. The jokes might be corny, sometimes predictable, but that's just the charm. From cast member interactions to ride experiences, laughter becomes part of the memory. What Disney ride, whether at Disneyland or Disney World, had you laughing until you cried? Now let's shift gears. Behind all that laughter is something even bigger. The idea of reaching as high as you can. No one represents that idea better than Walt Disney. And most of us Disney podcasters want to replicate his vision through our descriptions in the best way we can possible. Walt wasn't just an entertainer, he was a dreamer. He believed in ideas that didn't exist yet, and more importantly, he believed they could exist, despite everybody or life challenging him otherwise. Speaking of Disney and dreams, he has often been credited with coining the phrase, "It all started with a mouse." And that is true. I do agree with that completely. However, what most of us didn't realize was that it all started with the laughograms, because Walt experimented in Kansas City, testing animation and learning through trial and error. And some of the movies that we grew up watching have come from the laughogram studio. And as far as trial and error is concerned, what better way to explore that than Meet the Robinsons, a movie that flips failure on its own head. How often do we fail in real life and do nothing to celebrate it? No champagne, no confetti, no personal motto. Rarely, right? But Disney gives us a different perspective. Failure does become a moment to learn and to laugh and try again. You can say that instead failure is an option, because every attempt, whether fixing a car, learning a new skill such as fishing, or even pursuing a hobby, can lead to something unexpected, magical, and memorable. Have you ever thought of failure as an option? And if so, how would you celebrate it or look at it from a new perspective? When Walt first talked about Disneyland, people thought it was impossible. A clean, immersive theme park, a place where families could step inside stories. It all looked unrealistic, right? But guess what? Walt reached anyway. And when Disneyland opened, it wasn't just a park, it was proof that dreaming big could become reality. And, fun fact, the same thing also applied to Walt Disney's first full-length animated features such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. People back then thought it was unrealistic. In fact, they believed it was Disney's first folly. Because after all, Silly Symphonies was doing really well, and they thought that was the best that could be done at the time. But again, Walt reached anyway, and he believed what nobody else or life could see. How does Disneyland or Disney World inspire you? The vision didn't stop there. Walt Disney World expanded that dream. Bigger scale, bigger ideas, and most of all, bigger risks. And Walt even imagined a city of the future, something beyond a park. He didn't just reach high, he kept reaching even higher. Disney films continued this theme. For example, in Tangled, Rapunzel leaves everything she knows to follow a dream. And I like to think those paper lanterns that appear on her birthday every year, from a personal point of view, that they all lead to her destiny. In The Lion King, Simba grows into the role that he was meant to have, that he learned as a cub, but as an adult, he had to rediscover that for himself, even though it was a very difficult process for him. After all, reaching higher isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Which Disney movie inspires you the most? So what do laughter and dreaming big have in common? Everything. Laughter makes the journey joyful, and dreaming gives it direction. Disney doesn't just tell us to aim high, it gives us reasons to smile along the way. And maybe that's the real magic. So my poll question that I want all of you to ponder on is, which Disney moment inspires you the most, or making you laugh or dream big? Russell and Carl and Doug's hilarious chaos and Up, the failure is an option lesson in Meet the Robinsons, early laughogram experiments that sparked Walt Disney's biggest dreams, and Disneyland, Disney World moments that made your imagination soar. I encourage all of you to comment or share your favorite moment that if it's not listed. So today, whether you're celebrating laughter or challenging yourself to reach a little higher, take a page from Disney. Find the joy, take the risk, and believe in something bigger than yourself. Because sometimes the best dreams start with a smile. And that wraps up today's episode of Jacob's Guest Lounge, the history behind the mouse. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and share it with a fellow Disney fan. If you enjoy the show, please leave a 5-star rating and share it with others as well. It really helps the podcast grow. If you'd like your story to appear on the podcast or want to be a future guest, there's a link in the episode description to fill out. I'd love to hear from everybody. And don't forget to tune in next week for episode 8. I'll be kicking off the first segment of our Disney Decade Throwback, diving into the Disney Renaissance, one of the most magical eras in Disney history. You won't want to miss it. Until next time, keep the magic alive, and I'll see you all back here in the lounge.